The 19th century was deafening. It was a time defined by the roar of iron and steam, the birth of rapid railway networks, and a sweeping expansion of global trade. But the person whose name would come to define this roaring era began her life in near silence. At just 8 months old, Alexandrina Victoria lost her father. Kensington Palace functioned as a cold, cavernous fortress where she lived in near total isolation. Her world was restricted to a few drafty rooms and a strictly enforced schedule. She was rarely allowed outside to play freely. She was kept away from other children and forced to navigate every hour under the watchful eyes of handlers who dictated her every move. The era we now associate with unrelenting movement, the Victorian era, actually began with a monarch defined by total confinement. This confinement was deliberate. Her mother and Sir John Conroy designed the Kensington System, a psychological framework meant to monitor her every movement and force her into complete dependency. Within that silence, she spent years sharpening her own intellect. She mastered multiple languages, studied history, and recorded her desire for autonomy in a private diary, turning her isolation into a training ground for the resolve she would soon need. Early on the morning of June 20th, 1837, the power dynamic completely inverted. The old king died. The 18-year-old girl was woken up to the news that she was now the monarch. The advisor is expected to dominate a sheltered child. Instead, drawing on years of private study and suppressed ambition, she took her place at the head of the table. She spoke with a clarity that stunned the room, proving the Kensington System had failed to break her spirit. When faced with inheriting a global superpower, she didn't offer a sweeping speech. She offered exactly 4 words: "I will be good." To finalize the death of the system that had imprisoned her, she moved out of Kensington, claiming her own private room in Buckingham Palace. She was finally free. To maintain her newly won freedom, she knew she needed a partner who wouldn't try to manipulate her. She needed an actual equal. She found that equal in her cousin, Prince Albert. He was quiet, serious, and deeply interested in science and art. Because royal protocol demanded it, Victoria took the initiative and asked him to marry her. When they married in 1840, Victoria opted out of traditional colored gowns and wore a white dress. That single choice immediately set a global standard for weddings that continues directly to this day. This chart tracks the steep upward growth of British industrial output, plotted directly alongside the timeline of their 21-year marriage. Together, they functioned as a dual engine for the empire, driving sweeping technological progress while raising 9 children. For over 2 decades, she achieved a rare feat for a monarch. She balanced immense political authority with a deeply fulfilling personal life. That balance shattered in December of 1861. Prince Albert fell severely ill and died unexpectedly at the age of 42. The devastating emotional toll paralyzed her. She stopped eating properly, she couldn't sleep, and her ability to function came to an abrupt halt. Her mourning became absolute. She adopted black attire for the rest of her life, slept beside a plaster cast of his hand, and ordered his clothes to be laid out daily as if he were still alive. As she vanished from public view, the country dubbed her the Widow of Windsor. The empire was growing, but its central figurehead had completely withdrawn. The booming era could not run on the memory of a ghost. Victoria had to either find a way to navigate her grief or risk losing her connection to her people entirely. Very slowly, she chose to return to the throne. She never let go of Albert, but she learned to carry the weight of his memory gently and deliberately stepped back into her duties. If we look at this vintage world map of British territories, we see the vast reach of her solo reign. She navigated global shifts entirely on her own, adding the title of Empress of India in 1876, solidifying her influence across continents. When she died in 1901 at 81, she concluded a record-breaking 63-year reign. The machinery of a global empire paused to mark her passing. She was a physically small woman with a quiet voice, yet she cast a formidable historical shadow over the entire 19th century. Her legacy proves that true historical power doesn't require avoiding tragedy. It often comes down to the steady, quiet courage to keep moving forward.